initial meeting here in 2022, we kind of talked about the subject of connecting for a new year. I like to get right in here in the middle of you, so I'm going to do that. Connecting for a new year. And as we talked about that, we talked about James chapter 4. And in James chapter 4, there are some things that we pulled out. You know, if you look at James chapter 4 in general, it's kind of an interesting chapter because it really gives us a lot of information about destructive pride and relationships. Okay? In fact, it kind of talks to us, if you look at the early part of the chapter, it talks about how that pride promotes strife in our relationships. Then you kind of get to the middle part of the chapter and it talks about how that humility helps our relationships. And then what we focused on was a portion of the chapter from verses 13 to 17 that talks about the fact that meekness in our lives helps us maximize the use of our time. Okay? In other words, the time that we've been blessed with is very important for a reason. When we have humility in our lives and when we work on those relationships and we focus on those relationships, we have the best use of the time that God's given us. In fact, those verses say, James chapter 4, verse 13 through 17 says, "Come now, those of you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go to such and such a city and we'll spend a year there, we'll buy and we'll sell and we'll make a profit, where you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor, and it appears for just a little bit of time, and then it vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will do this or we will do that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to him that knows to do good and does it not, to him it is sin." So we talked about some things from that. We talked about the fact that we as humanity, we have a tendency to plan very temporary. We plan a little bit, but most of the time it's very short term. Even in our life planning, even in what we do in life, we tend to think short term, the immediate. But we especially fail in looking to the things that are eternal. And when we look eternal, what's that going to do in our life? Well, it's going to drive us to thinking about relationship. Because if you're thinking on the big scale, there's only one thing you can take with you. You can't take stuff, you can't take anything physical, you can't take money, you can't take all these things that you can come up with in life. You can't take those things with you. But you can take the souls of your loved ones. You can take the souls of your family. You can take the souls of friends. That is the one thing that we can take with us. And that's what it is to build and to think eternally. So we talked about that. And then we also talked about the fact that, we call it tomorrow's probability, but we talked about the fact that we gamble with probabilities in our life. You know, we take a gamble as to if we're going to live or die. We take a gamble about when we're going to live or die. We take a gamble about whether or not we're going to do what God wants us to do. And we have that tendency to say, one of these days I'm going to do that. As soon as I get through school and I'm not as busy, I'm going to do that. As soon as I get through college and I'm not as busy, I'm going to do that. You guys know, we've all said that. We've all said, as soon as we get this done, then I'm not going to be as busy. Then I'll serve God. Then I'll figure out what God wants me to do. And that's the last thing we talked about. We called it today's procrastination. How many of you have ever procrastinated? Okay. Because I was getting ready to say, we've got procrastinators and liars. Because we've all done it, right? In fact, guess what? The age group in this room is the worst. The worst at it. The biggest procrastinators. I mean, college students are just amazing procrastinators. Okay, I mean they're.
We trained in extreme sports.
It's a profession. I mean, it's just amazing at it. But here's the thing: when we put off something till tomorrow, that means we're not doing something today. We said one day I will do it. What's the other side of that? That means I'm not doing it today. And what does the Bible say? What did we just read? James chapter 4, verse 17. To him that knows to do good and does it not, to him it is sin. And we talked a little bit more. We talked in depth. We talked even about the mental aspects of procrastination. There are a lot of problems physically that come from procrastination in our lives. But spiritually, it's even bigger, and we often don't see it. Okay? So we talked about all those things kind of to lead up to, and I wanted to reiterate some of the things to kind of think about this simple fact as we go into this week. And it's something that we've talked about a lot in the last year. And that is this one simple fact. And if you don't take anything away from anything we've ever discussed in Connect and in our time together and all this kind of stuff, if you don't take anything else away, take this one thing away. It's all about relationship. That's what God wants. Relationship. He wants you to have a relationship with Him, and He wants you to have a relationship with others that also brings them to relationship with Him. If you don't take anything else away, strip it all down to one thing, that's it. It's all about relationship.